지금 이 세션이 그 제목이 한류 속 여성 그리고 다문화성인데 항상 느끼는 게 사실 한류라는 거를 생각할 때 특히 이제 한국 사람들의 인식은 어떻게 우리의 것을 세계에 보여줄 것인가에 집중돼 있지 어떻게 그 사람들이 우리를 볼 것인가, 그 사람들이 우리를 어떻게 바라볼 것인가에 대해서는 굉장히 좀 인식이 아직 되게 선진적이지 않다? 이런 생각을 가끔 하게 됩니다. 그래서 이 세션에서 한국의 어떤 한국 문화 혹은 한국 미디어가 젠더적 감수성을 어느 정도 가지고 있는지, 그리고 다문화적 감수성을 얼마나 가지고 있는지, 사실 이런 문제들은 앞으로 한류가 세계에 퍼져나가면서 한국 문화가 굉장히 시험대에 설 수밖에 없는 그런 되게 중요하고 민감한 문제라고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 이번 세션에서 지금 이제 외국의 이 한류 연구가들이 해외에서 이 한류 혹은 한국 자체를 바라보는 시각에 대해서 우리가 조금 들여다볼 수 있는 계기를 이 발표를 통해서 그런 아이디어를 얻을 수 있었다라는 생각이 들고요. 저희가 오늘 이제 토론에 참여하실 패널분들을 모셨는데 혹시 이제 서로에게 그리고 발표자들에게 궁금하신 점이 있으면 패널들의 질문들부터 먼저 받고 그다음에 상호 자유롭게 토론하고 싶은 내용을 토론하도록 하겠습니다. 예, 먼저 우리 매튜 벨비기 씨가 선생님께서 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
네, 감사합니다. I will make the question in English so that it's easier for you to, I think. So I really enjoyed all the three presentations. It was really interesting to see how, even though at the beginning there are different topics, different. We went from vlogs, and then we went to K-drama, and then we went to even K-variety shows. But there were like a similarity in topics, definitely the importance of gender and stereotypes, and how other countries were portrayed in Korean content. And something that I found really interesting is that in your three presentations, there was the common keyword of repetition. So in the vlogs, there was a repetition of the same practice and how the algorithm was catching it and trying, to how it was like kind of a race to see how the algorithm would catch those behaviors and stuff like that. So that was interesting to me. And for the second presentation, it was the same, right? The repetition of behaviors in the workplace on women. So that was also something that I found similar. And in the third talk, the same thing between how those stereotypes are constructed by repetition, even though it was through, movies, K-dramas, and K-variety shows. So that was the main keyword kind of thing. And now if I should go into questions, for the first presenter, for the K vlogs, I was wondering what was the audience of those vlogs. I think at the beginning you mentioned about the international audience. Was it because it's mainly subtitled in English? Maybe they have like English subtitles. So that was, since I do research about K-pop fandom and reception studies. I'm always interested in the audience. So if you could talk more about the audience. And I was wondering if also, even though through this content, the people might be inspired to do it. I also wonder if it's not also a kind of trying to satisfy their want to be more ecological through just watching the content. I was wondering that too. And for the second talk, I was wondering if you found a kind of clear diminution of the repeated, acts of violence in dramas, and if that was also linked with the kind of change in the production teams, because as far as I know, mainly, the K-drama writers and producers are mainly women. So I was wondering if you found a connection with that. And I was also wondering, it's just like a small question, why you didn't include the K-drama Jeeheng. I don't know if you heard of it. It's yeah, okay. So yes, this one.
It wasn't a female lead.
Well, there's a character. Okay, so it's based on your methodology of the lead, okay. Because there's the character that actually I think, because from what I'm not a big K-drama fan, but from what I've kind of seen is that this drama kind of made a big debate in Korea by the way her character of Kang Sora, she was portrayed in the workplace. So that's why I was wondering about that.
Sensible.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was portrayed as sensible, but also she was married, and the
Yeah.
strain of her higher position and the married life
Yeah.
was very difficult for her. But she wasn't a female.
Okay.
She wasn't a lead character because we really liked that one as well.
Yeah. And for the third talk, I was wondering what did you think of kind of the implications you mentioned. I really liked your conclusion because I really like how you showed that it was a good thing that there was more content about Latin American Korean television, but at the same time, since it's always the kind of same stereotypes, it could also lead to a perpetuation of those stereotypes. So I was just wondering, what would you think would be the next step? Maybe, as you really said very rightfully, those content mostly don't show people from Latin America in it. And I'm thinking, since there are so many Hallyu fans in those countries, it wouldn't be difficult to consult those people and ask them, we're going to do a TV show or something, maybe, you can help us or like appear in it. Because that's what I've seen from content, for example, related to France. They would make people from France, like K-pop fans from France, come out in those shows. So I was wondering, what do you think would be the next step?
Thank you. And can we just answer by order from Dr. Labinovich, and then Dr. Grantham and Dr. Lurt?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the question. I think it's a really good one because it's addressed a thing that is really important when researching vlogs, because YouTube, it's not a platform to upload content. It's more like a social network. So the audience is really important because it's also influenced what she's going to create later. What I saw, I didn't interview yet the creators and check it, but I definitely can say that in the description of her vlogs, she put by herself translation from Korean, Japanese, English, Indonesian, Vietnamese, I think, Spanish, and French. So she translates herself for a few languages, and in the comments, I see comments mainly, I think, from Russian for some reason, from Spanish, or at least in Spanish. And interestingly, most of them address not the specific issue. She can upload a video about 8 ways to recycle something, and they will write in the comment, "Thank you, it was really relaxing." It's like ASMR, very aesthetic kind of videos. So they say in her, "Thank you," because it's beautiful. So they're not specifically addressed this issue. And it says also connected to the other question about desperation. I think in a basic answer is yes, it's inspired, but I think that inspire them in a more deep way to be a better housewife, better woman. And I think it do put a lot of stress. I saw one comment that went something like, I give my child only healthy cookies without sugar. And then other one goes, I make my child only cookies made of organic things. The other one said, yeah, I do it also, but from organic things that I grow by myself. And they like have some kind of competition, who is better in being a good woman. And part of being a good woman is being ecological. Like it's being moral, it's being good. So I think it's inspired them to be better like her. And she was inspired from other women that she saw. She sang by herself, that she saw other vloggers, and she said, okay, it's a dream life. And those other vloggers that I also saw their videos are also practice ecology in a very similar way. So yes, it's inspired, but as a part of a bigger inspiration of which kind of person do you want to be.
Okay, Dr. Grantham, can you?
So one of the things I find very interesting about our presentations is the transition over time. So yours is, basically they're doing a lot of the same things that they were doing before, but for a different reason. And, we're moving from the narrative to the experience. And it made me, so one, I don't know if there are women writers, but it's something I will be looking into tonight. That we plotted this out over years. People don't watch the series over a period of years. And as a matter of fact, some of the more popular K-dramas are eventually dubbed into English. So I'm assuming that some people are watching them in English and not reading the subtitles. But there's just a transition. So if you're curious about how other parts of the world are viewing Korean culture, I'm not sure, because I don't think we're watching it in a linear fashion, the way that our study was. So maybe there's some narrative, and then there's some experience, there's some showing of older people that were saving power because for financial reasons versus being ecological. So I just think it's interesting. I think you need a body of absorbing the Korean culture to come to some conclusions about how you think the Korean culture is.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much for your comments. You're right about the repetition thing. Yeah, it was just, yeah. So what I thought about what you just said is, I always remember writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She's a writer from Nigeria, and she talks about the problem of a single story. So when you're from a not so well-known country, it's quite common that just one speech is the one that is, it spreads. So in her case, she's talking about her novel Americana. So many people were just thinking that all Nigerians are the one that, like, they are portrayed on that book because it's the only book they know outside of Nigeria. So she keeps saying that the problem is the single story, that if we have many more cultural products from this type of places, we will know more. But you just said this repetition thing, right? So it's true that if we have more of the same, then we don't have more, really. So I think that it's not about the quantity of the shows that will be produced in the future, but if they will be able to switch a little bit these stereotypes and bias. And there's a lot of work, not only for the producers, also for the viewers to be willing to change what was basically perpetrated by the late 19th century on. So the image before this research, I was studying how Asians are portrayed in Latin American films and media, and it's the same problem. It's not a problem about Korea, it's a problem about all the world. The only difference is that in Korea they don't watch Argentine shows, so they don't know how they are portrayed. But this is something that was basically constructed in Europe in the late 19th century. And the sad part for me is to think that even we were the ones who were orientalized, you know, like Edward Said's term, these stereotypes about Asia and also about Latin America and Africa. We keep repeating that to ourselves, but also about regions now we know more, but we still don't know enough, I guess. So I hope that all around the world we are able to have more stories and not this problem of the single story again and again. And I also have questions for the presenters. Thank you so much for your presentations to both. I really, really enjoy them both. As a woman from the Global South, it's always so interesting to hear this analysis of women on the media. And well, first for Lea, I was thinking, there was a research a few years ago about how YouTube algorithm ends up promoting far-right content. So if you keep watching some, sort of right-wing content, it will eventually be more and more extreme, far right. So I don't know if the ecological content in the one you're analyzing is having a political bias or not. Is linked to any conservative, more not only traditional but conservative, individualistic approach. And also, I was also thinking about what you said, like the person you want to be, but they don't do the same for their kids. So it's a way of it's opposite of what many Latin Americans do about, for instance, sugar. So we don't give sugar to our kids, but we will eat it ourselves, right? Just hiding from it. And this is opposite. So they will do the good thing or what they think is the moral and ethic and good thing to do to themselves, but not to their kids. So isn't it a little bit, I don't know, at least strange for me to be thinking like I will behave ethically, but I don't want to. I don't need to give that to my kids as a model. And for Susan, well, so many questions. I don't know. Luckily we have time, but one of the questions is: do you think there's also this fourth wave feminism that started 6 years ago also affected the change of the portrayal of women in K-dramas, especially now that the viewers are more international and it's so global that they also have to be thinking about global audiences, and maybe that also affected not only the feminism in Korea but also the feminism abroad. And I was also very curious about the methodology itself. If you could, tell more about it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Now it's okay? Yeah. Okay, so about the political bias, actually what I found in the beginning, that it's not just like not bias, it's not political at all. And in the beginning, in the first year or so, she never talked about ecology. She just showed how she recycled, but she never mentioned how she get the knowledge, why she's doing it. In a few hours of watching, I found just one comment that wasn't related to what she's doing. She said that plastic is keep existing for 500 years or something like that. And was the only thing that she said. So she really distanced herself from anything that is like educate others or be political. Like, I think that ecology is a really political issue, but she really distanced herself inside the house. She's never getting out. Like the photos that I showed, She put her in her Instagram, and she told that it was weird for her to get out of the home and taking pictures there. She's like, not really, I think this is part of my meaning when I'm saying gendered, that this is in a domestic sphere. She's not getting out, not by saying anything, not by addressing the bigger issue, almost never. So that's it. I will say that I do feel that there is like a kind of traditional Korean feeling, like almost Christian feeling, but she never addressed this issue directly. I think that in purpose, because it's like, it's not her deal. She's like woman, she's at home. She's not speaking about high politics. Okay. Yeah, you know, you're right. Yeah, and about her daughter, I think it's like a real tension. There was some time that she make food, and she will make in the beginning for herself soya and meat for her husband and her daughter. And then for her and for her husband, she's making soya, but for the daughter, it's still meat. So I think it's like she thinks that she can do an effort, even if it's hard for herself, but she won't put like that weight on her daughter. Like if her daughter want to have fun in a pool with water, it's okay. But for her, if she want to like clean the dishes, she will use like hard soap, not to like waste any water. So she do act like differently to her daughter, but I'm not thinking that it's like less moral, but maybe in a sense that her daughter she cannot do this effort yet. I think she like thinking that ecology is important, especially for the next generation, because she have a kid. This is what she said, but not in the sense that she will do the effort, but she will not demand from others to do it. Because she's not like in an hierarchical way, she's not putting herself on top and telling others what to do, also to her own kid. So I think that is, but it's a really interesting thought, like if this is the right thing to do, especially for her daughter, why she not educated her about this? Or maybe she does, and she did choose not to represent it because of the study of representation. I cannot do what she's really doing. But I'm just interested to see what she represents. Yeah.
I think I'm more in line with you as we think that parents are supposed to be modeling for their children to behave so that we would eat well and things along those lines. We don't necessarily, we are having the Snickers bar at night after the kids are in bed, but so I think you asked me about like global feminism, the influence of global feminism. I think, I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm not really sure because, companies like Netflix, Disney, and some other companies are buying these shows and showing them. And I think it's more based on the popularity of the show than necessarily the story line or how people are portrayed. I'll have to give that some more thought. As for the methodology, so somebody, it could be a woman, but generally it was a man that was an authoritative position. And we coded things, so we coded each instance and we had a rating of low, medium, highs. Like this was like an implied request. There was some moderate movement on it, or it was just an all-out harassment issue, and went through that. And the one that comes to, the line that comes to mind was at the end of one of the series. It wasn't the female lead, it was a secondary female lead. And she was leaving a company, and she looked at the owner, and because all these women are capable, they're, they have college degrees or some type of training, they're all capable in their jobs, so they're not inferior in their jobs. And she looked at the owner and she says, "I never knew what you wanted from me." And he just looked at her and said, "Subservience." That's what was expected, was that she would be subservient. And I thought, that pretty well wrapped up a lot of this, that there is a pecking order here, or an order, a hierarchy, authoritative. And so, in some of the shows, it was far more collaborative, but they tended to be in organizations that were smaller groups, or they worked within teams. They might be in a larger organization, but in the storyline they were in a smaller group, and they were more respected or listened to, awarded for their ideas and things along those lines. So I'll have to give some thought to the feminism and the female writers. I have homework.
예, 그러면은 송정은 선생님께서 그 패널로서 지금 발표자들에게 뭐 전부 모든 발표자에게 질문하셔도 좋지만 예, 뭐 궁금하셨던 부분에 대해서 네 하셔도 됩니다.
안녕하세요. 저는 혹시 모를 말실수를 위해 그냥 통역분들께 부탁드리겠습니다. 우선 너무 잘 들었습니다. 그리고 앞에서 질문해 주신 거와 저의 질문을 피하기 위해서 계속 다음 질문 뭘로 하지 이런 생각을 좀 했는데 만약 제가 중복되는 질문을 하더라도 양해 부탁드리고 조금 더 알고 싶다는 의지로 받아들여주시면 좋겠습니다. 그냥 짧게 한 분 한 분씩 제가 경청했다는 걸 표시하기 위해 한 분 한 분께 질문을 드리면 또 질문과 약간의 저의 생각을 곁들여서 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 우선 첫 번째 발표, 저 너무 제목부터 되게 인상적이었어요. 근데 저는 이거를 우선은 어떻게 받아들였냐면 제가 생각했을 때 요즘 20대, 30대 남자, 여자 모두 식물, 플랜트, 레이징 플랜트라고 하면 플랜팅에 굉장히 많은 관심을 갖고 있습니다. 심지어 식물에 투자를 한다는 그런 좀 해프닝도 있는데요. 저는 그래서 지금 제가 그 하미마미 그 블로그를 보지 못했지만 저도 유튜브에 간간히 How to organize your home 뭐 이런 게 떠요. 아마 그 해시태그나 뭐 어떤 게 제가 좀 클리닝의 무대에 뭘 알아보면 그게 갑자기 이렇게 붙어버리는 것 같아요. 저희 의지와 상관없이. 그래서 그렇지만 이제 그 유명한 블로그는 보지 못했는데 아마 제가 봤을 때는 약간 그 여성분이 의도하지 않았건 의도했던 건 간에 약간의 좀 새로운 그러한 또 여성상을 좀 보여주는 것이 아닌가. 그러니까 이제까지는 조금 기존의 30, 40대 여성들이 커리어를 위해서 얼마나 치열하게 그 현장에서 싸우고 아니면 내 커리어 빌딩을 위해서 굉장히 약간 커리어 우먼은 이래야 돼라는 약간의 그러한 모습을 조금 보여주기 바빴다면 지금 20, 30대는 제가 너무 세대를 구분하는 건지 모르겠으나 워라밸을 중시하고 자기 자신을 케어하고 다스리는 것도 중시하고 플랜팅이나 어떤 이렇게 케어하는 거에 되게 많은 좀 그 생각을 달리하는 것 같아요. 그러니까 조금 기존의 여성들은 조금 사회에서 너의 여성으로서 남성에게 좀 뒤지지 않으려면 약간 비교당하지 않으려면 넌 좀 더 철저해야 돼. 넌 조금 더 이렇게 좀 지도력도 있어야 되고 또 여성의 리더십까지 보여줘야 돼. 약간 그런 약간의 압박 아닌 압박을 만들기도 하고 사회적으로 요구받기도 했다면 지금 여기 여성상은 조금 더 좀 주부라고 저는 약간 국한시키고 싶진 않지만 새롭게 약간의 그 약간 이렇게 좀 튼다고 할까요? 그러니까 20, 30대의 특성도 갖고 있으면서 또 리사이클 이런 거에 관심을 가지면서 그냥 어떤 새로운 환경에 대한 케어나 꼭 굿 와이프나 이런 역할을 하는 것이 또 뭐 그러는 건 아니잖아. 약간 그런 걸 보여주려는 의도가 아닌가. 근데 저 그 블로그에 너무 관심이 생겨서 이제 볼 건데요. 저희 질문은 혹시 그 블로그의 댓글이나 이렇게 그 서브스크라이버들과 그 리액션을 하는 거 아니면 리액션까지는 안 되더라도 서브스크라이버들의 반응은 조금 어땠는지 혹시 그걸 좀 보셨는지 만약에 그런 것까지는 못 보셨다면 앞으로 이러한 여성의 이미지가 조금 더 많이 이렇게 소비가 될 것 같다고 예상하시는지 조금 그러면을 여쭤보고 싶습니다. 그리고 이제 두 번째 발표자님께 여쭤보면 우선은 그 드라마를 차근차근 이렇게 보여주셨는데 어떻게 선정했는지 그냥 물론 매번 저도 다 못 봐요 드라마를. 근데 그거를 매번 어떤 기준으로 그 드라마를 연구 대상으로 연구로 보셨는지 여쭤보고 싶고 혹시 아까 결론에도 조금 말씀해 주셨지만 가장 눈에 띄게 조금 변화하는 여성상에 대해서 조금 말씀을 해주셨는데 그 혹시 일본이나 중국이나 다른 아시아 여성과 한국 여성을 비교할 수 있는 드라마를 그러니까 일본 드라마나 이렇게 좀 보시면서 한국 여성과 일본 여성의 약간 차이를 보실 수 있는 경험을 하신 적이 있으신지 만약에 그런 경험이 없다면 모르겠지만 경험이 있으시다면 약간의 한국 여성들의 이미지가 조금 또 다른 아시안과 구별되는 좋은 면도 있고 나쁜 면도 있을 것 같은데 혹시 그런 차이점을 좀 발견하신 적이 있는지 여쭤보고 싶고 마지막 발표자 발표를 들으면서 저도 사실 이런 연구를 예전에 저 대학원 다닐 때 많이 했었는데 잠깐 다른 데 눈 돌리다 보니 잊고 있다가 많은 반성을 했습니다. 많은 반성을 했고 저 역시도 아직까지 라틴 아메리카 하면 그 이상적인 그러한 그 우리가 갖고 있지 못하는 그런 이국적이고 아름다운 자연의 모습을 먼저 상상했던 것 같은데 저는 한류 연구하면서 국제 공동 제작 코프로덕션을 많이 강조하는 편인데 혹시 저희가 투어나 음식이나 이런 면으로 다큐멘터리를 찍고 그러는 거 외에 만약에 라틴 아메리카 국가들과 한국이 조금 다큐멘터리 이런 비상업적인 거 말고 조금 더 좀 합작 드라마나 이런 걸 좀 찍는다면 저희가 아마 조금 더 라틴 아메리카에 대해서 좀 다르게 볼 수 있지 않을까 싶은데 혹시 그 라틴 아메리카는 좀 이런 문화 정책이나 이런 뭐 문화 컨텐츠 정책에서 이렇게 코프로덕션 이런 거를 외국과 많이 하시는지 좀 그런 것 좀 여쭤보고 싶었습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you. I strongly agree with the way you described this. I would say that the taking care of herself and in plants in the past few years, 2 years, she had much less plants, and then with time, all of her house with plants, and she have a big garden, and it was her dream, like exactly what you described, and it's really visible. So about the comments, I didn't study the comments yet, so I cannot say for sure. I will check it. I know it's important. But about the way, like the ideal woman that she is, and if it's gonna stick, I'm sure that in other countries it will, that are less developed, or that the society is not organized like that yet. We do see in Korea that more women that are more educated are more, they are working less because they have no money, like have enough money, I'm sorry. She took absence of leave because her husband can afford it to herself, like he can pay for them both. And I would say that she get a lot of money from YouTube, all of them, really a lot. And I do think that, of course I cannot say, but I do think that economic situation will decide if it's stake in Korea or not. Like in Japan, which there it began earlier, now we can see also under Abe a few years ago that they have the idea of womenomics, when the economy is going into recession and more people need to get to work. So you have this idea of women supposed to work, and then there is enough prosperity, and educated middle-class women can stay at home with their kids and rest. It's not really resting, but balance their work-life care. So yeah, I think it is. About Korea, I don't know, but I can say that people from other countries do want to live more like her, to have the ability to stay with their kids at home.
So how do we choose our shows? Leanna or myself or both of us had seen all the shows at one time. We had a pool, and we were discussing, and we wanted to follow years. So initially, it wasn't even a year thing. It was just the female lead and her workplace had to be integral to the storyline. And we wanted to look at shows that were trending highly on Netflix, but had also been well received in South Korea. So it wasn't just the Western point of view, they'd been well accepted here. We just wanted to kind of have this sameness to them, that the workplace was important to the storyline. And we initially did 5, and as we were going along, of course, we're watching other K-dramas on our own. And after the bullying law was enacted, we picked up some more and followed that for several more years. Personally, I don't have a lot of experience with Japanese dramas, but I have watched some Chinese dramas, Turkish, Spanish, but Chinese dramas. And I see a lot of the sameness in terms of the treatment of women. They're very capable, but the male authority figures are threatened by them. They do a lot to undermine them, hold back resources and things along those lines so that the women don't succeed, don't surpass them, don't usurp them, usurp their position. I have a feeling that it's a lot like in the United States. People, you don't move quickly from, a lower position to a higher position, but they want to maintain a certain level of authority, and if they're going to mentor somebody, it's more likely to be a junior male colleague than a female colleague.
Okay. About
Thank
the
you.
co-production.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Well, about co-production, there had been many, maybe 20, that's a lot for us, co-productions between Korean and Latin America regarding film. In that case, because film, most of them were art house films, it was more sensitive, so the subjects, the topics, everything was much more subtle and not so many stereotypes. There are memorandum of understanding between Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina and Korea. But the problem is about co-producing is that we're very far away. So, for instance, if you have a small, especially southern Latin America, right, like Chile, Argentina, if you have maybe 5 or 7 days to shoot, but you have almost 4 days of traveling, like 2 days to go and 2 days to come back, it makes it really hard. Also, the difference a bit regarding time. So, we have 12 hours difference. So it's really hard to keep working on that. On the communication gets really difficult. But in all Latin America, the TV and film industry is quite strong. So usually when people go there, the Korean film people go there to film, they find very good technicians and they're very happy with the situation. But again, it's very hard to make it often. So it's very specific. About television, there are many productions that are done in Latin America, not usually co-productions, but Korean programs, Korean TV shows that are especially, small documentaries or informative documentaries. But they also work with Latin American technicians. The problem to think maybe about the co-production in TV regarding the way Latin Americans are portrayed is that because it's commercial, it's quite possible that us will be also like self-orientalizing ourselves or reproducing the same, because we often think it will be what will sell. So if you go to any Argentine company and ask them to produce any type of TV show, the first thing that they will think is about tango, meat, and wine. So because it's what it sells abroad. And so there's some problems that might arise, but I would also love to see something else produce on co-produce also about.
네, 이 세 분에 대한 그 질의 답변을 좀 들어봤는데 혹시 이제 플로어에서 이 발표를 들으시면서 좀 궁금하신 점이 계신 분이 있었다면 저희가 질문을 한번 받아볼까요?
기본적으로 이제 저는 이제 한 가지 생각을 갖고 있는 것들 중에 하나가 저희 그 한류 드라마가 이제 초기에 저희 대한민국의 어떤 기본적인 모습을 보여주다 보니까 여성상에 있어서 조금은 세계적인 기준에 못 미치는 그런 드라마들이 좀 보여졌을 때 그것이 미치는 영향 이런 것들에 대해서 이제 생각을 해봤었습니다. 그런데 다행스럽게도 지금 굉장히 좀 변화하고 있다라는 그 수잔 교수님의 얘기를 듣고 굉장히 기뻤습니다. 사실 대한민국 내에서 여성이라는 부분이 굉장히 많이 이 지위가 지금 변화하고 있기 때문에 그것들이 좀 반영이 된 것이 아닌가. 아까 질문에서도 잠깐 나왔지만 정말 여성 작가님들이 대부분 이제 대다수이기도 하고 뭐 이런 면도 있겠지만 사회적으로 굉장히 많이 변화가 됐습니다. 근데 제가 이제 변명스럽게 좀 말씀을 드릴 수 있는 것들 중에는 대한민국의 어떤 여성에 관한 이야기들이 전 세계적으로 볼 때 또는 뭐 이 서구의 관점에서 볼 때는 굉장히 부족한 부분이 있을 수 있지만 이 동양에 있어서는 비교적 여성이라는 어떤 위치가 굉장히 좀 다르다라는 생각을 합니다. 저희 그 한류 영화가 또는 한류 드라마가 이 동양에서 먼저 인기를 끌게 된 것에는 이 기본적으로 비슷한 정서 이런 것들이 좀 존재했었고 그것으로 말미암아 조금 더 친밀감을 더 느끼게 되겠고 그래서 더 많이 보게 됐고 그런 가운데 만약에 저희가 조금씩 그 여성성에 대한 것들 또는 젠더 어떤 감수성 이런 것들이 점점 높은 영화들이 나오게 된다면 이런 선한 영향력을 좀 미칠 수 있지 않을까 하는 생각을 합니다. 물론 이제 이 세계적인 기준에 있어서 아직 좀 부족한 부분이 좀 있을 수는 있다라고 하지만 그럼에도 불구하고 그런 점에 있어서는 그래도 기여가 될 수 있지 않을까. 또 그것이 이제 제가 좀 바라보고 있는 부분 중에 하나입니다. 그래서 이런 것들을 좀 키울 수 있는 어떤 방안이 좀 있을까. 그러니까 사실은 처음서부터 이 여성성이나 이런 것들이 동양적인 어떤 것을 떠나서 너무 이 자기네들의 세상하고 조금 많이 다를 경우에는 오히려 더 이질감을 느끼게 되지만 그렇지 않고 우리 한국 드라마가 동양에서 미칠 수 있는 영향이라는 것은 조금 더 다르지 않을까 싶은데 이런 부분과 관련돼서 이제 여러분들의 국가에 있어서의 어떤 여성성이라는 것이 한국 드라마하고 얼마나 많은 갭이 있는지 하는 것들을 조금 좀 듣고 싶고 그것의 가능성에 대한 얘기를 좀 여러분들이 좀 해주셨으면 감사하겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
네, 지금 방금 질문 주신 거를 제가 조금 정리를 하자면 뭔가 이런 어떤 지금의 한국 드라마에서 보여주는 여성 재현이 너무 지금 서구적 시각으로 바라보는 여성 재현이 아니냐는 말씀을 해주시는 것 같아요. 그러니까 이런 게 굉장히 서구적 시각에서 볼 때 선진적이냐 아니면 후진적이냐이지 뭐 어떤 동양적인 그런 장점이나 아니면 특성 이런 것들에 대한 고려가 조금 빠진 기준일 수도 있다는 가능성을 말씀해 주신 것 같고 그리고 이제 그런 시각에서 봤을 때 그 한국 여성의 어떤 재현과 그다음에 뭐 미국이라든지 아니면 기타 다른 나라에서의 여성 재현의 차이가 얼마나 있는지 이제 이런 부분들에 대해서 질문을 주신 것 같습니다. 네.
So I would say that going back to Hofstede's cultural dimensions, that my perception is that the women are moving, and the masculinity, femininity, they're more collectively, so it's not, they are collectively moving together to a stronger position. So there is they're also addressing uncertainty avoidance, moving towards lowering the power distance that they are as a group moving across that. And I would think that that is reflected in a lot of cultures, including my own, that you need a group, the individual or the indulgence of a single woman, of a singular person standing up for themselves is not going to impart much of a change, but that there's more cohesion among women in the workplace to support each other. So one of the things in my culture in the last 50 years is that if I was rising through an organization and you had potential, part of what I would do is make sure your potential was not well known because I was staking out a place for myself. But in the K-dramas, and I think in society, that the women, well, I believe the education level of women in South Korea is quite high. So that, I think, is helpful, but that they are working with each other, and that is also being seen in the dramas, and maybe is a positive influence on the Western culture, because we still do, to a certain extent, it's like focus on the individual. So I'm progressing. So in order for me to progress, you can't progress as well as I am. So I'm going to keep moving up. So that collective support, conversation, behavior, I think is actually a very positive influence outside of South Korea.
네, 저도 뭐 이제 여러 가지 한국의 어떤 페미니스트적인 상황이 어떠냐고 했을 때 굉장한 지금 분투의 상황인 것 같아요. 2015년 지금 이제 크라삼 교수님도 말씀하셨지만 페미니즘 리부트가 그냥 저절로 혼자 생긴 운동이 아니라 수많은 그 여성들의 눈물과 피땀으로 일궈졌었고 지금도 계속해서 전 사회적으로 백래쉬를 맞고 있는, 끊임없이 그 여성의 어떤 사회적인 그 지위라든지 아니면은 뭐랄까 그 세이프티 같은 것들이 계속해서 위협당하는 상황이 동시대적으로 계속해서 벌어지고 있고, 한국 드라마가 비단 굉장히 선진적인 여성을 아주 훌륭하게 그려내고 있다고는 생각하지 않습니다. 저는 특히 한국 영화보다 한국 드라마가 훨씬 더 여성 작가 비율이 높고, 그 다음에 선진적인 이야기들을 많이 채택하고 있는데도 불구하고 여전히 미디어라는 거는 사회를 반영하기 때문에 한국 사회에서의 어떤 여성의 지위에 대한 일정 정도 그런 반영들이 부정적으로 나타나고 있는 면이 있다고 생각하고요. 그러니까 예를 들면 한국 영화 같은 경우에는 1년에 그 백델 테스트, 굉장히 간단한 테스트죠. 여성 캐릭터가, 이름이 있는 여성 캐릭터가 2명 이상 있는가, 여성끼리 남자 이외의 것에 대해서 대화를 하는가, 뭐 이런 간단한 테스트를 통과하는 유의미한 그 한국 영화가 1년에 10편 정도밖에 안 됩니다. 그 굉장히 지금, 왜냐하면 한국 영화의 대부분의 그 작가들은 남성 감독들이거든요. 그렇기 때문에 자기 이야기를 쓰지 여성에 대한 이야기를 잘 쓰지 않아요. 그런데 한국 드라마는 거의 여성 작가들이 굉장히 어떤 메인스트림 포지션에 있기 때문에 지금 한국 드라마에 있어서 훨씬 한국 영화보다 굉장히 어떤 그 여성 재연이 더 낫다라는 게 일반적인 평가입니다. 이제 그럼에도 불구하고 많은 것들이 개선되어야 한다라는 생각이 들고요. 되게 재밌게 잘 들었는데 이제 제 그 느낌은 그렇습니다. 지금 원래 발표를 하시기로 했던
Yeah, just
Yeah,
add
you
one
can
comment.
add. Yeah.
So I'm thinking you're saying the feminist reboot started around 2017, and I'm thinking about my lifespan, and I'm considerably older than most of the people in this room. And I think I've thought about this often about my husband, who's one of 6 brothers. And he and I both came from very traditional homes where our moms stayed home, our fathers worked. And that transition over that 50 years of coming out of that household as a youngster and marrying women who had jobs, had college degrees, had professional, it was a real transition in the United States. And I think the feminist movement has been really supported by the willingness of those men to go along with it. I know there was a lot of discussion for many years. It's like, well, the women, yes, you can go to work, but you still need to clean the house and do the laundry and take care of the children and stuff. And there's been a real transition of that. And I would see, and young men today, there's not an expectation that they wouldn't fully or partially be responsible for the household. So I think it's a multi-generational move, and you say, you know, there's pushback and there's violence, and I would say that in the 70s and stuff, that was the case as well. So I'm happy to learn that there are a lot of women writers in the K-drama, because I think that they can, you know, point these things out and position these things and, you know, really exemplify that women are very capable.
예를 들면은 최근에 매우 화제가 되었던 그 우영우라는 드라마의 작가가 그 드라마를 통해서 한국 사회에 던져준 어떤 주제성들을 보면은 그 여성이 이제 40대 초반의 한국 여성이고, 그러니까 한국에서 드라마에서 절대 이전에 본 적 없었던 어떤 레즈비언 커플의 가능성이라든지 이런 걸 던져줄 수 있는 사람들, 혹은 여성이 그 굉장히 아까 말씀하신 것처럼 자신을 도와주고 혹은 이해해주는 남성 그 상사와 함께 조화롭게 직장 생활을 할 수 있다는 점, 이런 것들이 사실 여성 작가의 그 입을 통해서, 글을 통해서 이 전반적인 상황을 보았기 때문에 그 드라마에 반영될 수 있는 어떤 것이 아니었나라는 생각도 듭니다. 그러니까 굉장히 누가 쓰느냐가 매우 중요한 문제라는 생각이 들었어요.
Thank you so much for that point of view. I was also wondering if more writers in Korean drama could also be linked to that K-dramas are mostly seen by women and not men, while films are maybe not that gender-oriented. And also, I wanted to say that, okay, there are many more Korean women writing, but in other areas, such as directing, the same K-dramas they're writing, or technicians, or like photography directors, there are not so many. And I understand that, for instance, the Extraordinary Attorney Woo writer wanted also to direct the show, and she wasn't allowed. So for me, it's very interesting to see how women are occupying different spaces, but it's still a lot, you know, like we need to go further, I think.
네, 맞습니다. 뭐 글을 쓰는 작가들뿐만 아니라 그런 감독이라든지, 특히 한국 영화 같은 경우에는 작가와 감독이 완전히 분리된 시스템이 아니고 감독들이 많이 그 시나리오를 쓰기 때문에 감독 비율이 높으면 이야기가 훨씬, 남성 감독 비율이 높기 때문에 이야기가 훨씬 더 남성향의 이야기들이 많이 만들어지는 경향이 있고, 여전히 그런데 한국 영화 감독 중에 여성 비율은 10% 아래에 머무르고 있고, 그것도 상업영화가 아니라 독립영화까지 포함해야 10% 정도의 굉장히 적은 퍼센티지를 보이고 있기 때문에 이런 것들이 그 어떤 이야기성에 굉장히 영향을 끼치고 있다고 할 수도 있겠습니다. 지금 플로어에서 질문하시려고.
저는 좀 특히 우리 지구에서 보면 가장 반대편이라고 할 수 있는 아르헨티나에서 오신 우리 루시아 루드 박사님에게 좀 질문을 좀 주고 싶습니다. 아까 말씀하신 연설하신 내용 중에 JTBC에서 만든 트래블러라는 프로그램이 있었는데요. 저희가 너무 그 프로그램을 좋아해서 이 가족들하고도 같이 봤었습니다. 그리고 그 아르헨티나에 대해서 우리 한국에 있는 연예인들을 통해서 깊이 있게 이해할 수 있는 기회가 되고 제가 가보지 못한 아르헨티나를 그렇게 간접적으로 경험한 거에 대해서 아주 유익한 프로그램이라고 생각했는데요. 기본적으로 이제 제 입장에서 봤을 때는 이 프로그램은 JTBC라는 한국의 이제 종편이 한국의 시청자들을 위해서 만든 프로그램이다 이렇게 생각하는데요. 쉽게 말하면 이제 내수용이라고 볼 수 있는 거죠. 근데 그 루시아 박사님이 그걸 어디서 어떻게 보셨는지가 저는 개인적으로 되게 궁금합니다. 제가 말씀드리는 거는 우리 K-팝이 세계적으로 지금 굉장히 많이 이렇게 유포가 되고 있고 전파가 되고 있는데 어떤 그 플랫폼을 통해서 그 아르헨티나 현지에서는 이거를 지금 볼 수가 있는지 꼭 그 트래블러라는 이 프로그램이 아니라 K-팝 어떤 그 장르를 보고 싶을 때 어떤 그 플랫폼 그러니까 유튜브 또는 뭐 페이스북 또는 인터넷 홈페이지를 한국에 있는 여기까지 직접 찾아와서 볼 수도 있고 하는데 그런 것들이 구체적으로 어떻게 지금 저희들이 접근이 되고 있는지 아르헨티나에서는 어떻게 우리를 찾아오는지 그런 부분들에 대해서 좀 설명을 해주시면 고맙겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much for the question. I also enjoyed Traveler a lot. I laughed a lot during watching it. I just needed to present it with a critical view, but I also like it a lot. And well, in Argentina, K-pop is really big right now. Yesterday they were saying it's one of the 10 countries where it's more spread. So in Brazil and Mexico as well. And it's, well, the show itself, I watch it through a website. Many of the K-drama or K-pop fans translate it into either English or Spanish, just, you know, for love, out of, like, they do it for free, just for people to watch it. And so I was able to watch it through one of those websites. In Netflix, for instance, in Argentina, 9% of the content is Korean. That's really impressive. It doesn't mean that everybody watches it, but because Netflix is producing so many Korean content, they also distribute there. And to be honest, in Latin America, it's quite common to see things not on a legal base of website. So I don't know. So there are many websites that are not, well, let's say not official. Yeah, and we can watch them through that, on also YouTube. And what is very interesting for me is that Argentina in particular is usually everything is in Buenos Aires, and K-pop is all around the country. So you can go to a very, very small town in southern part of Argentina where there are only sheep and mountains, and people there, young people will be listening and dancing K-pop. So I think on the last 10 years, because internet got more common all around the country, there's really very small towns in regions that are very far away that have K-pop clubs and K-pop fan clubs, and especially it's about either some bands or dancing. They do have a lot of groups for dancing, and yeah, it's really big there.
네, 제가 좀 마무리 코멘트를 하고 이제 이 지금 세션이 굉장히 생각보다 빨리 끝나서 토론을 지금 1시간 가까이 하고 있는데, 네. 이 세션이 굉장히 의미 있는 이유가 아까 제가 이제 처음에 말씀드렸다시피, 한국은 한국 문화에 관한 그 콘텐츠를 제작하고 그리고 이게 내수용으로 끝날 거라고 생각했던 시절은 이미 지났다라는 말씀을 드리고 싶어요. 모두가 어디서나 볼 수 있고, 그래서 모두가 우리의 훌륭함, 우리 문화의 훌륭함은 물론 우리 문화의 저열함까지 함께 바라본다라는 사실을 잊고 있으면 안 된다라는 생각이 들어요. 그런 면에서 한국이 어떻게 사회적 소수자를 재현하는가는 정말 초미의 관심일 수밖에 없고, 특히 이제 K-팝 커뮤니티에서는 한국이 보여주는 어떤 그런 스탠더드가 너무 그 글로벌 스탠다드에 맞지 않는 것 때문에 팬들이 굉장히 그런 거에 대해서 불만을 표시하고 뭐 그런 경우가 굉장히 많거든요. 그래서 늘 우리가 하는 모든 것이 세계에 보여지고 있다라는 시각을 누구나 할 필요가 있는 시점이 아닌가. 한류가 이렇게 더 글로벌하게 퍼져나가는 시점에서, 그리고 한류의 문화라는 것도 기본적으로 한국 문화라기보다는 굉장히 트랜스내셔널한 혼종적인 문화로 만들어졌고 출발했고 그렇게 번성했다라는 생각이 듭니다. 그렇기 때문에 우리가 우리를 어떻게 재현하느냐도 중요하지만 우리가 타 문화를, 타 인종을, 타인들을 어떻게 재현하느냐에도 이 한류의 뭐랄까 서스테이너빌리티가 굉장히 크게 달려 있다라는 점을 다시 한번 상기해야 될 것 같다. 이런 생각을 하게 됩니다. 네, 오늘 발표해 주신 발표자분들 너무 감사하고 그다음에 올해 토론까지 해주셔서 너무 감사드립니다. 고맙습니다.